Well, here now to discuss is someone who was in that hearing today, Republican Congressman Rob Wittman from Virginia. He's the Armed Services Committee vice-ranking member. Congressman, great to have you with us. That looked like an intense hearing today. Take us inside of it. What happened? What was most important that you heard?
Well, Brian, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity. Today's hearing was, I believe, about two things. One is the President's budget not putting forward 5% real growth in order to build the capability and capacity in our military and not compensating for a 7% rate of inflation. Secondly, the fallacy of this policy of divesting to invest, where you take away military assets today, which take away capability and capacity, with the promise of building that sometime in the future. That provides a vulnerability gap that I can tell you the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, the North Koreans, and others will try to exploit.
All right, so let's go into that budget, because I know you're one of 28 Republicans in that committee who has said the president has not proposed enough. What are the critical pieces that he's missing? What actually has to happen from Congress to get the military budget right?
Well, a great example is their plan proposes to build 8 ships and retire 24 ships. It's incredible that we would now put ourselves on a path to reduce our Navy from 297 ships to 280 ships, while at the same time, the Chinese Navy will build to 460 ships by 2030. We're going in opposite directions, and that's one of many elements of the budget that doesn't advocate for building the necessary capacity and capability to counter our allies. It's just unconscionable that that's what they're proposing.
Congressman, I want to go back to the substance of this hearing today, particularly with Ukraine and Russia. I want you to listen to General Mark Milley. I think this is interesting. When he thinks the U.S. Would not have been able to deter Russian troops in the first place. Listen to what he says here.
So I think the idea of deterring Putin from invading Ukraine, deterring him by the United States, would have required the commitment of U.S. military forces, and I think that would have risked armed conflict with Russia.
Now, the question has been, had we done sanctions earlier, could we have done something to forestall what's happened? Do you agree with General Milley that there was really nothing we could have done short of direct military involvement there to deter him?
Well, Brian, unfortunately, we'll never know because we didn't take those aggressive steps early on. I think that caution led to provoking Russia for this attack against a sovereign nation. I think there are things we could have done. I think you could have put sanctions in early on that would have had an effect at about the time that Putin decided to invade Ukraine. I think that you could have put military presence in certain areas like the Mediterranean that would have made Putin think twice. I think you could have built up forces in certain areas in Europe with NATO that would have made Putin think twice. The problem is we'll never know because we never took those steps. This administration believed that they could talk their way out of this. And I can tell you, as people see, Putin is not one that you talk to. Putin understands one thing and one thing only, and that is strength. The adage of peace through strength, from what we saw from the Reagan administration, was exactly the way to go about deterring a despot like Vladimir Putin.
Okay, so explain this to me, because I asked a general about this just a second ago. We thought we had the mother of all sanctions on Russia weeks ago when this conflict really got underway. Now we're learning that we're going to see more sanctions as a result of what we've seen in Bucha, potentially what we're going to see in other parts of Ukraine. Why, Congressman, would we be reserving the sanctions that we're talking about leveling? Why are they reserved now? Why weren't those in place weeks ago, even as a response? I don't understand that timeline. Can you explain it?
Well, it doesn't make sense, Brian. We should have done those aggressive sanctions up front. You don't wait to do that and allow this conflict to accelerate, allow more Ukrainians to be killed. You need to put these things up front because they do take a while to have an impact. And you see the recent data showing that Russia's actually earning more money from the energy that they're selling. So those things have not had the deterring effect on Putin because he's still receiving resources. Those things should have been done early on. They should have been done aggressively. And then you would have had the impact now to where you could have limited the ability for Putin to continue this fight.
Yeah, it does not make sense to me that we reserve these sanctions for now. If they're going to work, they should have been in place weeks ago. Congressman, we got to leave it there. Great to see you. Thanks for being with us.